The committee room fell silent as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped to the podium, her deep purple suit standing out against the chamber's dark mahogany backdrop. C-SPAN cameras zoomed in on her determined expression as she reached into her portfolio. "Before we continue," Crockett announced, her voice steady but edged with authority, "I have obtained documents that directly contradict everything Ms. Levit has claimed over the past 3 months." Across the room, White House Deputy Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt froze mid-smile. Moments earlier, she had exchanged confident glances with Republican allies. Now, her eyes widened as Crockett held up a sealed manila envelope. "Madam Chair, I request permission to enter this into the record," Crockett continued. "It contains communication from Ms. Levit's office proving she knowingly misled Congress about border security numbers." The chamber erupted. Republican members shouted objections. Democrats whispered frantically. The chair banged her gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Cameras captured Levit's expression shift from shock to anger, then what looked like panic as she whispered to her legal counsel. Unexpectedly, Leavitt rose, gathering her papers with trembling hands, her face flushed with frustration, and headed for the exit. This wasn't just another hearing. This was the moment Jasmine Crockett changed everything. Before we delve further, remember to like this video and subscribe for our latest political coverage. Hit the notification bell to stay updated on breaking news. Karoline Leavitt had been the administration's rising star, the youngest deputy White House press secretary in modern history. At 27, she had already earned a reputation for sharp rebuttals and staunch defense of the president's policies. Conservative media praised her confidence, while liberal commentators criticized her rehearsed talking points and reluctance to engage with contradictory facts. Prior to her White House role, Leavitt worked for House Republican leadership and as an assistant press secretary during the Trump administration. Her rapid rise was closely watched by political insiders, positioning her as part of the next generation of Republican communication strategists. Frequent appearances on Fox News earned her a devoted following, with hashtags like the Fearless Karoline trending whenever she delivered pointed responses to critics. On immigration, Leavitt became the administration's most visible defender. For months, she cited statistics claiming decreased illegal crossings and increased deportations of serious criminals. These figures supported the administration's narrative that it had fixed what it described as a border crisis left by the previous administration. Jasmine Crockett had taken a different path. A civil rights attorney before entering politics, the Texas Democrat built her reputation defending voting rights and challenging systemic abuses of power. Elected to Congress in 2022, Crockett quickly became known for confronting authority when facts supported her position. "I didn't come to Washington to make friends," she famously said during her first-year committee hearing. "I came to make a difference." While Leavitt dominated conservative media, Crockett was frequently featured on MSNBC and CNN, praised for bringing verifiable evidence to hearings. Her trial attorney background showed in her methodical and effective questioning, often exposing contradictions in witnesses' statements. The two had clashed before. 3 months earlier, Leavitt had testified about border policies, presenting statistics that became central to the administration's immigration messaging. Crockett had expressed skepticism but lacked proof. "I believe you're presenting manipulated data," she said at the time, "but I'll reserve judgment until verification." Leavitt dismissed the claim confidently. The numbers speak for themselves. The exchange went viral, celebrated by conservative media, while progressives anticipated Crockett exposing what they called statistical manipulation. Now, 3 months later, they faced each other again. Stakes were higher than ever. The administration's immigration policy was up for a crucial Senate vote the following week, and public opinion largely relied on Leavitt's statistics. If proven false, support for the administration's policy could collapse. That morning, neither woman hinted that anything would be different. Leavitt sat calmly, reviewing notes. Crockett chatted with colleagues, occasionally glancing at Leavitt with an unreadable expression. The hearing opened with routine formalities. Republicans praised the administration's measures, while Democrats raised concerns about civil rights and resource allocation. When it was Leavitt's turn, she delivered her prepared testimony with practiced confidence. As the numbers show, she said, gesturing to slides. Illegal crossings have decreased by 43% since enhanced security protocols began. Deportations of individuals with serious criminal records have increased by 57%. These are documented by career professionals at the Department of Homeland Security. The first hour followed the familiar script. Republican questions allowed Levit to highlight successes, while Democrats questioned treatment of asylum seekers. Levit answered with her polished, composed responses. Then it was Crockett's turn. "Ms. Levit, good to see you again," she began conversationally. "I want to confirm. The statistics you've presented today and over the past 3 months come directly from internal DHS data, correct?" Levit nodded confidently. "Yes, Congresswoman. Compiled by career officials, these are the most accurate numbers available." Crockett smiled slightly. "And you personally reviewed them before presenting to Congress and the public?" "Of course. I would never present unverified information. If I believed the numbers were inaccurate, I would be legally obligated to correct the record." Levit shifted slightly. "Certainly, but these numbers are accurate. Multiple DHS sources have confirmed them." Crockett leaned forward. "Let's talk methodology. How does DHS define serious criminal records in deportation statistics? Individuals with felony convictions or multiple misdemeanors?" Levit replied. "That definition hasn't changed under this administration." "Are you certain?" Crockett pressed. The room tensed. Levit's voice remained confident but slightly defensive. "Regarding the process, when you received these statistics, did anyone request changes to the data presentation?" Crockett continued. Levit's brow furrowed. "We may have discussed formatting or clarity, but the substance was never altered." "Never altered," Crockett repeated slowly. "That's your testimony under oath?" "That's correct," Levit confirmed. Crockett paused, letting the room absorb the silence, then turned to the chair. "Madam Chair, I request a brief recess to organize materials relevant to my questioning." The chair agreed, calling a 15-minute recess. As members moved about, cameras caught Levit in an intense, whispered conversation with her legal counsel, her usual composure replaced by tension. Her expression had shifted to visible concern. Something had clearly caught her off guard. When the committee reconvened, the atmosphere had noticeably changed. Word had spread that Crockett had obtained new information. Several additional media outlets had rushed reporters to the hearing, sensing a major development. Crockett resumed her questioning with a sharply different tone. The earlier conversational style was gone, replaced by the precise, methodical approach that had earned her a reputation as a civil rights attorney. "Levit, I am going to read you an email sent from your office to the Department of Homeland Security on March 15th of this year. The subject line is, Revised Reporting Parameters for Border Security Metrics. Would you like me to remind you of the contents?" Color drained from Levit's face. "I'm not immediately familiar with that specific email, Congresswoman." "Allow me to help," Crockett said, consulting a document. "Following our discussion yesterday, please revise the methodology for calculating criminal deportations to include individuals with pending charges, not just convictions. This better reflects our enforcement priorities." The email was signed by her chief of staff, copying Levit directly. "Do you recall this communication now?" Levit swallowed hard. "Many emails come through my office." "Let me continue," Crockett interjected. The response from the DHS official states, "This represents a significant change from previous methodology and could make direct comparisons with prior years misleading. Do you still want us to implement this?" Your direct reply, Ms. Levit, was, and I quote, "Yes, proceed with the revised methodology. We can address any comparative concerns if they arise." Murmurs filled the room. Republican members exchanged worried glances. Democratic staffers took notes frantically. Levit's legal counsel whispered urgently, but she pushed him gently away and leaned into the microphone. "Congresswoman, I think this is being taken out of context. We were trying to capture a more comprehensive picture of enforcement activities." "A more comprehensive picture?" Crockett repeated. "Is that what you call inflating statistics by counting people who haven't been convicted? People who are legally innocent until proven guilty?" "That's not a fair characterization," Levit began. "There's more," Crockett continued. "A later email from your office requested that border crossing incidents be counted differently. Each attempt by the same individual counted as a separate crossing, rather than counting unique individuals. This artificially inflated baseline numbers from the previous administration, making your reduction appear more significant. Isn't that correct, Miss Leavitt? The committee room fell silent. Even Levitt's strongest allies looked stunned. If Crockett's documents were genuine, they suggested a deliberate attempt to manipulate data for political purposes. Leavitt took a deep breath, visibly trying to maintain composure. Congresswoman, without seeing these emails in full context, I cannot properly respond. That's fair, Crockett nodded, which is why I prepared copies for every member of this committee. Madam Chair, I request permission to enter these documents into the record and distribute them. And that was the moment everything changed. As staffers handed out the documents, cameras captured Levitt's expression shifting from professional composure to visible panic. She whispered something to her counsel, who shook his head, urging her to stay, but it was too late. The room watched in shock as Karoline Leavitt, the administration's usually composed defender, stood abruptly, gathered her papers with trembling hands, and headed for the exit. Miss Leavitt, the chair called, we are not in recess. Please return to your seat. Leavitt paused, turned slightly, and said loud enough for the microphones, I need to consult with my department. I'll return shortly. But everyone knew she wouldn't be coming back, not that day. The committee doors closed behind her, leaving stunned silence. For several seconds, nobody moved. A high-ranking administration official walking out mid-testimony was unprecedented. The committee chair was the first to recover. Let the record show the witness has left without being excused, she said, voice mixing shock and disapproval. We will take a 30-minute recess to determine how to proceed. Crockett was not finished. Madam Chair, before we recess, the committee should review the documents I've provided. Miss Leavitt's departure does not change the fact that we have evidence suggesting the administration deliberately manipulated border security data presented to Congress and the public. The chair nodded. The documents will be reviewed during the recess. Committee will reconvene in 30 minutes. As members left for the break, cameras captured several Republican representatives examining the documents with furrowed brows, while Democratic members gathered around Crockett, expressions a mix of astonishment and admiration. During the recess, the story spread rapidly across media platforms. Levitt's walkout trended on X within minutes. Cable news interrupted programming with breaking news alerts. The White House press office issued a brief statement. Deputy Press Secretary Levit needed to consult with colleagues on new information presented during the hearing and would respond at an appropriate time. When the committee reconvened, Levitt's seat remained empty. Her legal counsel was also gone. The chair addressed the situation directly. We've been informed that Deputy Press Secretary Levit will not return today. The committee must decide whether to reschedule her testimony or proceed with other measures. She paused, then continued more gravely. Having reviewed the documents provided by Congresswoman Crockett, this committee faces a serious matter regarding potentially misleading information provided to Congress. Crockett requested permission to speak and was granted it. What we have isn't a case of differing interpretations or honest mistakes, she said, measured but firm. The documents show a deliberate effort to change how border security statistics were calculated to make the administration's policies appear more successful. This communication explicitly acknowledges the new methodology would make comparisons with prior years misleading, yet they proceeded anyway. Then Miss Leavitt presented these statistics to Congress as if they were apples-to-apples comparisons. One Republican member, Congressman James Walsh, asked to speak. While I have concerns about how these documents were obtained, he said neutrally, the content raises questions that deserve answers. I suggest we formally request DHS provide the complete, unaltered border security data using consistent methodology across administrations, so we can assess the actual impact of current policies. Walsh's statement caused another shockwave. By neither defending Levitt nor dismissing Crockett's evidence, he highlighted the seriousness of the committee's findings. The seriousness of the situation had been clearly acknowledged. His recommendation that the committee review the actual data implied that prior information could not be fully trusted. Building on this, Democratic Congresswoman Elena Sanchez proposed, I move that we also request all internal communications regarding any changes to data collection and reporting methods for border security metrics since the start of this administration. The motion passed with bipartisan support. a rare occurrence in the typically divided committee. The camera focused on Crockett, who maintained a professional and serious demeanor despite achieving what political analysts would later call the year's most significant oversight victory. As the hearing continued, the committee explored the implications of the revelations. With Levit absent, members from both parties pressed the remaining witnesses more rigorously. Career officials from the Department of Homeland Security were called to testify. One exchange highlighted the shift in the room's atmosphere. Congressman Walsh asked a senior DHS data analyst, "Based on your experience, what effect would counting pending charges instead of convictions have on enforcement statistics?" The analyst, visibly uneasy but obligated to answer truthfully, replied, "It would increase the numbers by roughly 30% based on historical patterns. Additionally, counting repeat border crossings by the same individual as separate events, rather than tracking unique individuals, could double or triple the baseline numbers depending on the time frame." This testimony confirmed what Crockett's documents had indicated: the administration's reported border security statistics had been fundamentally altered, making meaningful comparisons impossible. At the conclusion of the hearing, the chair announced an unusual measure. Given the extraordinary nature of today's revelations, this committee will prepare an interim report within 72 hours. We will also refer this matter to the House Ethics Committee for further review regarding potentially misleading testimony provided to Congress. Outside the committee room, reporters swarmed Crockett in the Capitol hallway. "Congresswoman, how long have you had these documents?" One shouted. "How do you respond to the White House claim that you ambushed Ms. Leavitt unfairly?" asked another. Crockett stopped and addressed the cameras directly. "These documents came from a whistleblower within the department who was concerned that Congress and the American public were being misled. My staff and I verified their authenticity before presenting them today. This isn't about politics. It's about truth. The American people deserve honest information, not manipulated statistics designed to fit a predetermined narrative." She added, "Ms. Leavitt's decision to leave rather than address the documents speaks volumes. When confronted with evidence of wrongdoing, she chose to walk away rather than explain or defend her actions. The American people can draw their own conclusions." Meanwhile, at the White House, an emergency meeting convened in the Chief of Staff's office. Sources later told the Washington Post that the president was furious. Political repercussions were immediate, with several senators delaying votes on the immigration bill until accurate data could be reviewed. By evening, the story dominated the news cycle, with split-screen footage of Crockett holding the documents and Leavitt walking out playing repeatedly. Analysts across the political spectrum agreed. This was a defining moment with lasting implications for the administration's credibility. On his primetime show, conservative commentator Michael Stevens, usually a defender of the administration, stated, "If these documents are authentic, and no one has contested that, then Americans were deliberately misled on a critical issue. That's unacceptable, regardless of party." On a competing network, liberal host Rebecca Jordan said, "Today, accountability in real time happened. Karoline Leavitt expected business as usual, but was confronted with evidence she couldn't spin or deflect. And when that happened, she walked away." As night fell, 2 press releases reached reporters almost simultaneously. Crockett's office announced a press conference for the following morning to release additional information about border security claims. The White House press office issued a single-line statement. Deputy Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt has requested and been granted administrative leave pending a review of today's congressional testimony. The message was clear. Leavitt had been suspended. What began as a routine oversight hearing had escalated into one of the year's biggest political scandals. Hinging on the moment Crockett revealed documents Leavitt had never expected anyone to see. The following morning, Washington awoke to further shock. An anonymous Twitter account leaked the full email exchange between Leavitt's office and DHS officials, far more extensive than what Crockett presented. The emails revealed that the statistical changes were not initiated by career officials, but requested by the White House communications team to craft a narrative of border security success. Most damaging was Leavitt's own email. "These revised statistics give us exactly what we need. The 43% decrease will dominate headlines and silence critics. No one digs into methodology anyway." By 7 a.m., "No one digs into methodology" was trending nationally as shorthand for government deception. At 9 a.m., Crockett held her press conference on the Capitol steps, flanked by colleagues from both parties, demonstrating rare bipartisanship. She announced the formation of a special subcommittee to investigate whether similar statistical manipulations occurred in other policy areas. "What we uncovered yesterday may just be the tip of the iceberg," Crockett stated firmly. "The American people deserve to know if they are receiving accurate information about border security, the economy, and other critical issues." Environmental protection, or any other area where this administration claimed success, was suddenly under scrutiny. Jasmine Crockett revealed her source, a career civil servant at the Department of Homeland Security, who had grown increasingly uneasy with the pressure to alter numbers to fit political narratives. This whistleblower showed remarkable courage, risking their career to prioritize truth over political convenience. At noon, the White House held its first official briefing since the scandal erupted. The press secretary, visibly uncomfortable, read a prepared statement. The president claimed he was unaware of any changes to statistical methods and emphasized his commitment to accurate, transparent information. He instructed all departments to review their data reporting practices to ensure integrity. Deputy Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt had submitted her resignation that morning, which the president accepted. When asked if he still stood by the administration's border security claims, the press secretary paused before responding. "We are conducting a full review of the data and will provide updated information once complete." This vague answer intensified speculation that the administration's immigration narrative had relied on manipulated statistics. By afternoon, political repercussions were evident. The Senate Majority Leader announced the immigration bill would be removed from the calendar pending a full review of border data. Several moderate senators who had supported the legislation distanced themselves, with one stating, "I can't vote on a bill when I don't know if the problem it's meant to address is accurately described." On Capitol Hill, the House Oversight Committee released an interim report detailing a timeline of the data manipulation. Preliminary findings described the administration's actions as a deliberate attempt to mislead Congress and the public. The report recommended a formal censure and potential contempt of Congress, charges against Levit for false testimony. Political analysts quickly noted the broader implications. On a special evening broadcast, journalist Daniel Rivera said, "This scandal undermines the administration's core narrative, that they solve problems based on facts, not ideology. If border data was manipulated, voters will question what else may have been misrepresented." Conservative media, initially cautious, now fully embrace the story. "This isn't a partisan issue," stated commentator Elizabeth Vaughn. "It's about honesty in government. No administration should manipulate data, regardless of party." The hashtag #SharnBorderLies spread beyond political circles. Celebrities and influencers weighed in, capturing the public mood. One viral post from a centrist commentator summed it up. "They didn't just lie about numbers. They lied about people's safety. They lied about a key issue facing our country. That's betrayal, not spin." For Karoline Leavitt, the consequences were immediate and severe. Her rapid political rise, built on a reputation for effectiveness and loyalty, now ended abruptly. Reports suggested she felt abandoned by the administration she had defended, particularly after the White House implied the president was unaware of actions she believed had been approved at the highest levels. Levit left Washington immediately after resigning, returning home to avoid media attention, and her social media accounts went silent. For Jasmine Crockett, the hearing transformed her from a respected but relatively junior congresswoman into a national figure almost overnight. Interview requests poured in, and her social media following tripled within 24 hours. Fellow Democrats described her as a rising star with limitless potential. Yet Crockett framed her actions as institutional, not personal. She told a reporter, "This isn't about targeting an individual. It's about maintaining the integrity of information provided to Congress. Oversight only works if we can trust the data we're given." A week later, the full impact of what became known as Boardgate unfolded. DHS released recalibrated border statistics using consistent methods, revealing a starkly different reality. While some improvements existed, the previously claimed 43% decrease in illegal crossings shrank to just 7%. The immigration bill, once central to the president's agenda, collapsed as congressional support evaporated. The White House announced a staff shakeup, with multiple communications officials departing alongside Levit. The president's approval ratings fell 7 points in a single week, the steepest drop of his term. The scandal also changed media practices. Journalists who had previously reported administration data at face value now employed fact-checkers to verify methodology. "Show me your math" became a common refrain at press briefings. A month later, the House Oversight Committee released a comprehensive 200-page report detailing a systematic effort to manipulate border data. Emails revealed that officials far more senior than Levit were involved. The report concluded the deception was coordinated, deliberate, and intended to mislead Congress and the public about border policy effectiveness. Appearing on a Sunday news program, Crockett reflected on the lessons of the episode. In a healthy democracy, facts matter more than narrative. When public servants manipulate reality to fit a story, they undermine accountable government. Levit assumed no one would check her math, but in Congress and across America, someone always will. And that's how it should be. As politics moved on, the Leavitt-Crockett confrontation remained a reference point, a moment when an administration's carefully constructed facade cracked under scrutiny. For communications staff across Washington, it served as a warning. Emails never truly disappear, and methodology matters. For the public, it offered a rare, unfiltered view of how political narratives are created and how quickly they can unravel when someone asks, "Are these numbers real?" The documents exposed that day didn't just end Levit's career or derail a bill. They transformed how an administration communicated with the public and raised the standard for those that followed. In Washington, where perception often masquerades as reality, Crockett insisted on verifiable facts, turning a routine oversight hearing into one of the year's most consequential political moments, the day Karoline Leavitt walked out and could not undo. The damage her deception caused. If you found this political drama insightful, like the video and subscribe for in-depth coverage of Washington's major confrontations. Hit the notification bell for updates on our next analysis of political showdowns that change American policy. Comment below with your thoughts on who might be the next figure exposed by documents that alter everything.